Objectivity. Yeah, I know. I feel bad about that pun. That was not good. Hello, my makeup loving friends. Who knew? Since I put up my last video about my response to Shane Dawson in the beauty community, that so much would happen. I don't usually do videos like this, and I am looking forward to getting back to doing my standard makeup video sort of thing. But a few people did point out that, or rather say that they would like to see my take on this because I'm a psychologist. So when I say my take on this, I mean the slew of apology videos that have come out from Shane Dawson and Tati Westbrook. So Shane Dawson's video was of course entitled Taking Accountability, and Tati Westbrook's was Breaking the Silence. So I do want to say that yes, I am looking at this from a psychological point of view. However, I am a psychologist, but I am a behavioural psychologist, so my expertise is actually more in the area of autism, etc. So I want to make this very, very clear that this is not a diagnostic video. This is just my opinions, these are my observations, and they don't hold any weight in terms of diagnostics because I'm just looking at snapshots of their behaviour, and I do want to point out that this is behaviour that they have edited and put out towards us, so that's going to be obviously somewhat biased in that particular sense. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I want to try and remain as objective as possible in this. I'm not trying to take sides. I also want to say that I am not a fan of cancel culture. I don't agree with it because its whole kind of purpose almost seems to be looking for people who have made any mistakes, and if you're a human being, you have made mistakes, pointing those out and saying that they shouldn't have a reputation or shouldn't have a platform for these particular things. So then that makes it very difficult for anyone to take accountability for their mistakes. And if we know anything about being a human being, we make mistakes. We kind of need to make those mistakes to grow and learn from them. So I think cancel culture is actually quite harmful in allowing people to grow in that particular sense. So I am not advocating for any of that in any sense. Like I said, this is just a video about my opinions, thoughts, observations about what it is that I've observed in these videos. Feel free to disagree. You know, that's what it's all about. Of course, be respectful. I'll be respectful to you. You be respectful to me. That's what it's all about. I also have to say that obviously I'm not here to accept these apologies. These weren't apologies directed at me. So that's not what this is about. But let's get straight into it. So what are apologies? Apologies are essentially a persuasive argument to try and get the listener to come back to your side or to your way of thinking. That's what an apology is. You know, you could see it as being looking for forgiveness, but at the end of the day, it is essentially a persuasive argument. And if we look at persuasive arguments, these can be built upon three foundations. I even made a diagram. My inner lecturer is coming out. So you could have it based upon three particular things. Ethos, which is based upon the speaker, credibility and trust. So we saw that a little bit in Shane Dawson's original letter to the beauty community, where he said, I've been on YouTube for 15 years and I've never been involved in any sort of drama. So he was straight away going with ethos, so going with speaker credibility and trust. Tati did something similar in her video where she said, you know, I have been unproblematic and I haven't been involved in any sort of drama until this, therefore going with ethos. And that meets with varying success depending upon the person and their background. The next one is pathos, which is appealing to the listener's emotions and values. So these are apologies that are very much centered around feelings. So a really prime example of that would actually be Laura Lee's now, let's face it, infamous apology video where she cried on camera for a very long amount of time. And actually that wasn't very well received, because actually if you are generating an apology, a persuasive argument, pathos, appealing to emotion, actually tends to be the least strong of all of the arguments, which is why that wasn't taken very well. If you then looked at James Charles's initial apology video to Tati's bi-sister video back a little over a year, or about a year ago, he came off as very emotional in the very first one, and he actually lost a lot of subscribers as a result. But it was then that he changed his tactic and he went to logos, which is an argument based upon reality, logic and proof. So this is an argument that is based on, as the internet would call it, receipts. And that's what James Charles did in his particular apology video. We also saw that with Jenna Marble's recent apology video, where she came with her receipts showing these particular videos and talking about why they weren't correct and why she was taking those particular ones down. Now, if we are looking at Shane's apology video, he is very much appealing to pathos, which is, again, like I said, emotions, because he's saying things like, you know, I feel so bad and I feel so guilty, and he's talking a lot about his feelings around these particular things. And I don't wish to invalidate any of those, but that doesn't come across very, very well as a considered argument. Tati, on the other hand, in her like less than 24 hours old video, she brought in quite a bit of pathos. She tried to bring in some ethos. She failed to bring in any sort of receipts, because she said she wasn't able to, based upon legal teams. So I'm going to talk first about Shane Dawson's video, and then I'm going to move on to Tati Westbrook's video. There is a a thought structure around this. I have a lot of thoughts. I've actually had to write them down. Again, trying to be as objective as possible. It's not easy. So one of the first things that we think about when we look at Shane's video is there's this thing essentially that is a scale of sincerity, and there's like this middle ground that is just like the almost like Goldilocks, like it's just right, where you say that what you did was bad and it was wrong, right? See, that's like the middle ground. And then there's this other ground where it's like, I didn't do anything bad, you're not taking any accountability. So you straight away, there's like no sincerity there, yeah? But on the other side, if you straight away say, I am the worst person ever, you can't hate me as much as I hate myself, that also doesn't come across as being wildly sincere. So this is actually, funnily enough, where Shane Dawson came off in his video. He said an awful lot of, you know, however much you hate me, I hate myself more. So he was kind of coming off on that particular scale of sincerity, but he was also kind of shifting a little bit towards the, I don't really have any blame because I'm not that person anymore. He of course made inappropriate jokes. I'm not here to talk about the content of those jokes. It's not for me to talk about these particular things. He did say that he used jokes as a way of coping with stuff from his childhood. Now, this is a very Freudian concept, that using humour as a defence mechanism, and actually it would be considered by Freud to be a very mature defence mechanism. And there is actually a lot of research based upon these particular things. If we look at comedians, etc., they're more likely to have had a slightly more traumatic childhood and have used humour as a coping mechanism. So there is some truth around using humour as a defence mechanism, because it's one of the ways that we can process ideas. But there is also a camp that thinks that putting forward inappropriate ideas as jokes is a way of kind of dipping your toe into that particular topic and trying to gauge its acceptance with that particular audience. So there's a couple of different ways that you can view that, but again, I'm only just taking it based upon this video. I'm not looking at the rest of the narrative because there's too much to look at. He does, again, kind of he says that the video is taking accountability, which is great. That's kind of what I had said in my previous video, that I was like saying that I would really love to see just, you know, people coming out and saying, look, I'm sorry for my actions. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my God, that is brilliant. I'm so glad to see growth. This is fantastic. But a whole chunk of it was actually stating that his behaviours were based upon childhood trauma, being in the closet, based upon depression. Now, I said this before in a previous video that actually if you look at the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual, which was recently revised by the APA back in 2013, if you look at the diagnoses of depression, anxiety, etc., at no point does it state that behaviours like that are associated with depression, anxiety, etc. And I take some issue and some umbrage with that, being a psychologist and also being somebody who struggles with these particular issues. He also says around that some of these behaviours were associated with him being in the closet. I mean, we do know that there are more instances of kind of, I suppose, antisocial behaviour in a way, or deviant behaviour from those who aren't quite comfortable with their identity. So there is some truth in that particular respect. He also says within his video, he refers to like his different selves. He says throughout the video, I'm not that person. And that is quite a protective thing. It makes sense that he would say that because we don't like to see ourselves in a negative light. And anything that potentially interrupts or interferes with our positive regard of self, we try to essentially get rid of or attribute it to something else. So he's trying to really dislodge this from his current self. And that makes sense psychologically, that it's a protective thing. However, if he is taking accountability, you do have to acknowledge that that was who you were in that particular moment. He also says in his video that he holds his friends to a lower standard. And there is some truth in that. I mean, if we look at social psychology and all the experiments that it has done in terms of group mentality, etc., we are more likely to kind of engage in less appropriate behaviours when we're in groups with people. He does say that he holds friends to, like I said, a lower standard. But that often happens when there's a mismatch in terms of authority. So in the classic Milgram's experiment, where they were looking at delivering electric shocks to a Confederate. Now, they didn't actually deliver electric shocks. It was kind of blinded in that particular way, but that's a whole other thing. They did find that when the person that was telling them to do that was in a position of authority, they were far more likely to do this. So it does call into question as to whether or not these are like balanced friendships amongst peers, or whether there is a hierarchy amongst them. But in saying that, we do sometimes have a tendency not so much to hold our friends to a lower standard, but to try and explain away our friends' behaviour over the behaviour of a stranger. So if your friend does action A and a stranger does action A as well, you are more likely to explain away your friend's behaviour of, oh, they've just had a really tough time, their boyfriend has split up with them, they're this, they're that. But you're more likely to attribute the actions of person B to some inherent character flaw. There's a lot of research around that. It's in-group versus out-group behaviour. There's a lot of really interesting research on that. Just from an editing point of view, I thought it was really, really interesting that his video was about 20 minutes long and there were a lot of splices, so it was quite jumpy, that there were bits that were very clearly edited out. And that does make me wonder as to what it was that was edited out. Looking at some previous apology videos of his, I have seen that he's quite quick to anger, and he actually said that in the video before, that in the past he has gone straight to anger. So I do wonder if he actually edited those out, which I think would have been quite smart, because it wouldn't have reflected very well on him. Again, it would have been a very ethos-based argument or persuasion. This is where I kind of deviate a little bit, and I will say that words are words, and they're all very nice and beautiful and you can wrap them up in a bow. But actions are the thing that are going to show us a real amount of remorse. And this video was put up a few days ago, so it's in the coming weeks, months, etc. that we're actually going to see whether or not there's a true amount of remorse. My issue around the things around racism was, up until very recently, he was still profiting from this. The videos were still up on his channel. He was still selling Shanae merch up until recently. So there was, again, a certain amount of shifting blame, where even when he said that he was aware of the video around his 12-year-old cousin being inappropriate, he went to her mum and to her, and they said, oh, no, it's a joke. So he said that that was basically okay, and he felt kind of relieved at that. But if you've any sort of qualms about that behaviour, looking for validation from other people shouldn't be the thing that helps you decide whether or not to stay on this. So there was a little bit of blaming, of kind of saying, oh, well, other people told me it was fine, in the same way that he said, you know, that other people told me I was so funny for doing these jokes. So again, it's not a full attempt to take accountability. I think it was a decent first step, and I do have to say, I can't even imagine how difficult it is to get on to a camera where you know that millions of people are going to watch this particular video. I think at the moment, at the time that I'm filming, it has over 12 million views. To know that you're putting yourself into this position, pointing out the stuff that you've done wrong, it's very humbling. So I fully appreciate that is not an easy thing to do, and that is not something I would take pleasure in. I also want to point out that I'm not taking pleasure in any of this in terms of the people who are suffering on all sides of this. I think it's actually a really sad situation, and I have no idea what's going to come of it. I hope good things happen out of this. So now we're on to Tati's video. Tati! Yeah, I do actually legitimately have tea. I was almost going to bend it over and I would have spilt it all over my laptop. So I've watched Tati's video a few times and I have quite a few thoughts on it. Thought it was really interesting that just even down to her choice of clothing, she was very smart in the way that she was presenting herself, because there was a little bit of subliminal messaging. She had a t-shirt on that said peace, P-E-A-C-E, not as in like a piece of chocolate, which I would love, thank you very much. So it was very much, she kind of had a lot of these messages throughout her video around wanting to be peaceful. She brought up spirituality, etc. So she was kind of priming the audience to think, I'm a good person, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. And this is not an unusual tactic. You could see that this was somewhat coordinated, even down to, obviously she had this scripted, which does make it a little bit more difficult to analyse, because you can't really look at body language. Shane's body language in his was very, very uncomfortable, highly uncomfortable. There was a lot of twitchiness, a lot of nerviness, and of course it was so spliced. But we've seen things like this before in terms of the way that people are marketing themselves, because again, an apology video is always an attempt at somebody marketing themselves, persuading somebody of their argument. We've seen something like this before. After Lipstick Gate, Jaclyn Hill wore a t-shirt that said girl power. So again, she was trying to remind people that she was a female CEO and, you know, we should be empowering women. So this is not an unusual tactic. She does say within her video that when she initially met Shane, she actually goes on to mention people by name, which I was very surprised that she actually called people out. She said that he gave her loads of compliments, saying that he loved her videos, that he wanted her to teach him all of the ways of makeup. To me, that shows all of the signs of classic love bombing. So that is where somebody fills you with loads and loads of compliments, loads and loads of reinforcement, and you are more likely then to attach to them and believe what it is that they're saying is true. She even goes on to say like, oh, well, I had no reason to doubt him because, you know, he has this image of being somebody who looks for the truth. I did find it interesting that she apologised to Jackie Aina. Again, I can't accept that apology. That apology was not directed towards me. This was where she said that she still posted the collab even after Jeffree Star's, and I'm going to say it, wildly inappropriate comments. She said that it was because she was excited. But that doesn't seem like a plausible reason for her to post a video with somebody who has made racist remarks, in my opinion. It does seem more plausible that she posted this as she knew it would be big for her platform, that it would increase her subscribership, her viewers, etc. So giving that excuse of her saying that she was excited about it, it seemed quite disingenuous. And again, it's her not taking full accountability of these particular things, and it's not giving that full honesty of that particular account. It's kind of like saying that she can't really be blamed because she was trying to see the best in people and she was excited, so she looked past that. So again, it's an interesting one. She then, I've written this down verbatim because I thought this was interesting. She said, Shane Dawson didn't just know about my Bi Sister video, he offered to help edit it. He even offered to design the thumbnail and help title it. I declined his offer, but his gesture supported and reinforced for me that he was telling the truth. Why else would he jeopardize his career? So surely Jeffree was telling the truth too. Keep in mind that up until this point, I didn't even know that I was making a video, so how was it that so many editorial outlets knew that something was coming before I had even made a decision to film? And this particular statement is actually corroborated by a drama channel called Ashley Kyle. She has actual text messages from Jeffree Star saying that something is coming, keep an eye out, there's going to be something coming from somebody is making a video. So again, this does seem to corroborate this particular story. Tati then goes on to say, I struggled with the decision to film my video for days. The night before I did film, Jeffree sent me what he claimed was an audio file from an alleged victim and told me to listen to the pain in their voice. The audio was clearly a small portion of a larger conversation. It wasn't enough for me to contact the authorities. It was enough to scare me. And she kind of goes into further detail on that. What I find interesting was she says, the night before posting my Bi Sister, my video Bi Sister, I texted Shane sharing my concerns for James Charles, that he was out of the country on the high floor of a hotel and I was afraid for him hurting himself. So she was aware of the dangers around that, around the mental health, which we do know later he did really struggle with. Shane texted me back and said that I should not be nervous about the 50th floor, that James Charles was a narcissist and that he would never do that. The day the video went up, Shane requested to come over to my house and film and document what was happening. I declined. So this particular statement, it shows a specific level of accountability. She knew the risk to James Charles's mental health because again, he was a teenager at the time that this was going on. I think is he 19 now? So he was like 17, 18 at the time that this was happening. And she still went ahead with uploading the video. And yes, it is a case that she's stating that she was gaslit. She uses the phrase gaslit into doing this. But at the end of the day, she is the one who pressed the button to say upload. You know, it takes a while to upload these things. She even linked in 2 tier drama channels at the time. I remember that she had said that she had given exclusivity to like T-Spill or something at the time. So in this, she didn't take full accountability for her actions. She gave quite a few excuses in terms of being manipulated. And I mean, it is true. It's very easy to be manipulated and it is a harsh reality. And that's not to say that she wasn't manipulated, but you do have to take some ownership there in terms of actions. It's awful that you were manipulated, but your actions were still your actions and you knew that they were not appropriate when you were even saying that you were afraid for his mental health and you still went ahead and put this forward. So, for example, although she clearly didn't say that he was within her initial video, I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable, and she reiterated that fact within her Breaking the Silence video. She did, however, plant the seeds of doubt in relation to speaking about his behaviour at her birthday party. She was talking about a lot of inappropriate sexual advances, etc. So she was planting that seed of doubt so that when Jeffree then went on to make these allegations, it lended some credibility to this. Again, she didn't take full accountability for that, and she did generate quite a few excuses in that regard. She then goes on to say that the video itself, like the initial video, the Bi Sisters video, wasn't about the vitamins. But the original Bi Sisters video did take up a lot of time looking at that. Like it was, I think, a 40-minute video, and at least half of it was dedicated to looking at that. So again, that's something she could have taken more ownership on, because at the time it was quite clear that she felt betrayed, and if she had, that was the thing that instigated that. I think if she had taken ownership in this newest video stating that, it would have seemed a bit more true, because again, the timing of that video coinciding with the sugar bear hair thing seemed a bit odd. She also said that she didn't know much about Shane Dawson and his content. And in my opinion, it seems a little bit unusual that a content creator who has been on the platform for 10 years wouldn't be aware of a YouTuber as big as Shane. Because I think he's in terms of the US, he's the top 50 creators, or at least he was at the time. He's losing a lot of subscribers. I think last time I looked at the Social Blade, he's down by 900,000, which is insane. Jeffree isn't taking the same hit. It's a little worrying. So for example, I haven't been in the community that long. I've been an avid watcher of YouTube for maybe 2 or 3 years, and I've been putting videos up for about a year now, almost a year. But I was still quite aware of who he was. I mean, I didn't know about his earlier really weird content, because that was when we had dial-up internet. So the early years of the internet are not that clear to me. And although it's possible that she didn't know about that questionable content, let's face it, there are so many creators out there on the platform. It does seem a bit weird that she would deny knowing about him at all, considering her space on the platform. And while she did apologise for her part in Dramageddon and her part in what she did to James within her Breaking the Silence video, she kind of did this by introducing new allegations against Jeffree and Shane, which some people could interpret as shifting the blame towards others and kind of alleviating the responsibilities of her own behaviour in that regard. So doing that particular thing actually prevents this from being a true apology video, and it was more of an attempt to clear her reputation, and that seems to be the core purpose of that video rather than being an apology video, which there's nothing wrong with that. It just would have been, I think, a little bit more truthful if she had stated that that was the purpose, and just be very clear and very transparent on that. What I found really odd was she was saying that Shane was saying, about that there was all of these allegations against James Charles and he was planning on interviewing victims. I find it so odd that you wouldn't question why somebody's instinct would be to film a documentary and film victims rather than tell them to go to the appropriate authorities with that evidence. It seems very backward. It just seems very strange that they weren't saying to bring in evidence and instead generate, it was just very, very odd. There was also some contradictions from her Bi Sisters video and this recent video, which is a little bit problematic because you actually can't get her Bi Sisters video anymore because it's been removed from the platform, which I will talk about in a little bit. In her original Bi Sisters video, she said that she saw some behaviours of James Charles that she wasn't happy with. She goes on to say some particular things that I'm not going to repeat because I'm trying to not swear on my channel. But in the latest video, uploaded less than 24 hours ago, she said that she heard about it from Jeffree Charles, but that she didn't see it. That it was Jeffree texting her the morning after her birthday saying that he was so sorry for James's behaviour. And she kind of implied that she didn't think that it was an issue at the time, but she was made to feel, it was built up that she should feel in this particular way, and that they manipulated her into feeling this particular way. She does say at the beginning of the video, obviously, that her and James Charles have made up. They apologised to each other back in December, which I'm really glad that she went to him first and had a private apology, because I really don't understand all of these public statements. I think that a lot of this could have been handled behind closed doors. She said that James wanted to make the video with her, but she chose to do it herself. I do find it, again, I'm not a fan of James Charles. I don't really watch his content. I think I'm too old for that. But weirdly, I think he's coming out of this as being the most mature individual out of this. She said that she chose to do the video herself, which I think was a smart move, because it does show that she's attempting to take some accountability for this herself. Because I think if he had been in the video with her, it wouldn't have come across as her really taking as much accountability as it had. She did say that nobody's hands were clean on this, including herself. But she does go on to say that she was manipulated and coerced to make the initial video. So it is an odd one. But while some people will, of course, say that it's difficult to believe that another person can make somebody else do something like that, it is actually totally possible. In a previous video of mine that I put up over a week ago, I think, I talked about sociopaths and psychopaths, and you know, there is evidence that there are individuals in this world who are incredibly adept at manipulating people to do things for their own end, for their own devices. And she talks about gaslighting, and I think it's actually really important that we don't say that didn't happen to her, that this seems to, like, that we don't try to delegitimize her claims on this, because gaslighting there's no limit as to who it potentially affects. It affects people irrespective of their age, their experience, wealth, or any other factor. So I know that some people may say that, oh, she should have known better for her age. Gaslighting can happen at any particular age. It doesn't matter. I found this really interesting. She said that she continued to pursue a friendship with Jeffree because she wanted to help him better himself, and said that you needed to do this with love. But you see, the thing is, this statement contradicts her actual behaviour, including her initial By Sister exposure video. She's saying to help people change, you have to do this with love. And that video felt like more of an attack at the time. And actually, I would even say that this current video felt very much like a cause to arm. Like she was saying that people needed to come out and say these particular things. And you are seeing a lot of things on Twitter now with beauty YouTubers saying that, yeah, they felt this for a long time, that Jeffree was manipulating people behind the scenes, allegedly. But with her stating this, that she wanted to stay friends with Jeffree because she felt she could be a good influence on him, it seems to point to a potential saviour complex, which is mixed with some narcissism, because she seems to be overestimating her influence on others. Again, I talked about narcissism before. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but yeah. We've also seen some additional evidence of a potential saviour complex, because she talks about James Charles as her being his mentor, and that she took him under her wing and was helping mould him and get him ready for the beauty community, etc. So we have some kind of information on that. That was a little bit more appropriate because, you know, of the age difference, and that made sense to mentor him because he was so new in the area. But Jeffree was already established, so, and of a similar age to her, so that relationship seems a bit weird. So when we're talking about a saviour complex, it can be defined as a psychological construct which makes a person feel the need to save other people. This person has a strong tendency to seek people who desperately need help and to assist them, often sacrificing their own needs for these people. And the thing is, this is actually in a way, a psychological defense mechanism, because people engage in these particular savior complexes because it allows them to escape something traumatic or emotionally difficult within their lives. And she actually kind of touches on this a little bit within the video, where she talks about her issues around fertility treatments and her previous sexual assaults. So her engaging in the savior complex behavior may be an attempt to kind of deal with the psychological distress and trauma around that, in my opinion. She does go on to say that obviously the Bi Sisters video has been removed from the platform, and she said that YouTube told her to put it down because it wasn't a good look for the platform. I find that interesting because they say that that wasn't a good look for the platform, yet they allowed some very racist, questionable content and, you know, content with inappropriate interactions with children on, and left them on until they were deleted this week by the content creator. I find that very strange that they were saying that that wasn't appropriate. Like, I mean, I do think anything where you are potentially attacking people or, you know, defaming their character, that is problematic. She does go on to hint that Jeffree is a co-owner of Morphe within her video. But the thing is, that's actually quite a big allegation to make, because it's against the FDC guidelines to fail to disclose this particular fact to consumers if they're promoting a brand. And Jeffree, of course, has promoted Morphe as a brand, and if he is a co-owner and he hasn't actually put that information out there, he is in a lot of trouble legally. So it's actually a very, very big allegation to level against him on that playing field. So ironically, even though she's saying that she may seek legal action, if there isn't truth in that claim regarding Jeffree and Morphe, he could actually sue her for defamation of character. I'm surprised that, you know, she said that this was all scripted and she ran it past her legal team. I'm surprised they didn't catch that and kind of say, maybe don't talk about that because we have no evidence on that. She had no receipts to state that. I find it interesting that she then also says within her video, she says that Shane said that he would always support her and pledged her loyalty. But there was a very brief, less than 2-minute video of Shane on his Instagram. It's all over the Twitterverse, YouTube, etc. You can find it everywhere. And his reaction to that is very interesting. So he said that he would support her and that he understood, he was empathetic, etc. And that he was actually a victim of molestation himself. And yet when she said in her video that she was a victim of sexual abuse, you can see it in his Instagram video, he actually rolled his eyes and said that she was manipulative and saying that her tears weren't real. So whether he meant to or not, this does appear to undermine a survivor of sexual assault. And considering his experience with this, it seems a bit odd that you would think he would be a little bit more sensitive to that. Some people, of course, are going to come down the line and say that it was emotionally manipulative of her to bring in the sexual assault, but I actually think it was very important context for her to bring in, because it explains why she kind of why there was such a domino effect and why she rolled with what was being said, because it was such a triggering topic for her, and why she reacted in the way she did towards the allegations towards James Charles at the time. So I think what is really interesting as well is at the time that I'm filming this, Jeffree Star hasn't reacted yet to somebody who has out and out said that they are family, and Shane is being ripped apart on social media for better or for worse. Again, I'm trying to remain as objective on this as possible, but I do find it very strange that he's not saying anything or coming to his aid. I do want to say that in my opinion, this is not drama. Like, this is not like tea. This is a lot of exploitation, not just of the people involved, but of viewers. That feelings, emotions, etc. are being manipulated. Like, I personally don't know where I come down on this. I'm Ireland. I'm neutral. I have no idea where I'm coming down on this, because the thing is, all of these videos are edited. They are put forward in a certain way to have their argument put in front of us. So I think it's very, very difficult to come down on any particular side unless there's like tangible proof put in front of you. I do think that when we're talking about potential crimes, this is not something that we should be talking about lightly, and that this isn't just fodder for like tea channels or exposés. And I think we have to be really, really careful and diligent about the way that we're talking about this. And I think a lot of this doesn't need to be on the internet, which is why I'm not talking about the specific allegations, because I don't want to talk about that. I just don't think it's appropriate. I'm just talking about the behaviour within the videos. I do think, like I said, it's really, really important that we remain objective at the moment, because we can't really decide who is being truthful unless we have that concrete evidence. Because again, each of these people have a vested interest in terms of the narrative that they're giving us. And we're not going to know the truth for quite some time. We thought we knew the truth a year ago, but now we're getting more information on it. So I hope this video was helpful, interesting, something. I'm not going to lie, I've been very anxious about doing it, because I mean, it's such an emotive topic, and like I said, I do want to be as objective as possible. I'm not diagnosing anybody. I'm not saying that this person has this or this person has that. This is purely speculative. These are my opinions. They're not facts. But we're going to see more stuff coming out in the next while, and it's exhausting. I'll be frank, I probably don't want to do another video like this again. I find them difficult. I want to go back to just shoving makeup onto my face. And as soon as I've finished videoing this, I'm going to go and watch some content that I have to catch up on. The likes of Elena Glam, Make Me Up Missa, Christina Collins, Rebecca J.U. reporting for Beauty Duty, Gold Star Works. I have a lot of stuff that I want to catch up on in that respect. So I think given everything that we've seen in the community for the last while, there is a huge negativity bias, and I do think we have to try and be as positive as possible. So like I said, I'm not trying to cancel anybody. I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't want to hear, no, not that I don't want to hear, but I don't believe in bringing about more negativity. That wasn't the purpose of this video. But yes, that was a very long ramble. That is it. That is the end of the video. Do please like, comment and subscribe. I don't usually do videos like this. They make me so nervous. I will go back to making my usual comment eventually. I'm sorry, I'm so haggard looking. I have been travelling around a lot, like moving things. And yeah, I'll get back to doing my regular stuff eventually. Oh, but that is it. Do please share, because sharing is caring, unless of course it's an STD, in which case, you know, wrap it up. Don't be gross. But that is it. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.